All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Season 2 of Cohort W. I'm your host, USWOC faculty member and current Warrant Officer Historical Foundation Fellow, CW5, Leonard Momini. Now, today's episode is kind of a part 2 to a previous episode that many of you may or may not have listened to. If you recall, in episode 7, we had a chance to sit down with the Command Chief Warrant Officer for the Military Intelligence Corps, CW5 Aaron Anderson. Well, what is fascinating is that Aaron Anderson, if you recall, had made mention that he was selected to take the position of Command Chief Warrant Officer at the Combined Arms Center out there in beautiful Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And so as we begin our discussion today, if for some reason they hadn't tuned in to the previous episode, sir, could you introduce yourself just once more?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And thanks for having me on. So CW5 Aaron Anderson. I am currently the Command Chief Warrant Officer for the U.S. Army Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, as well as the Military Intelligence Branch Chief Warrant Officer. I'm a 350 Fox by trade, which is an all-source intelligence technician. And I've been in the job at the MI branch for about 2 years overall. Been in the Army just short of 27 years and been a warrant officer since 2006.
Thank you for that quick update in case we had some new listeners join us. But this new position at the Combined Arms Center, can you tell us about this just a little bit? This is definitely beyond the typical scope and purview of the typical warrant officer, even at the senior levels, that tends to focus on the specifics of their branch and corps.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss that a little bit. So, it's interesting. I'm the third Command Chief Warrant Officer for the Combined Arms Center. The first was Special Forces. The second was Aviation. And now I'm military intelligence, obviously. And it's great because I continue to be able to work with the different proponents, although at a different level, but working with each of the centers of excellence on initiatives to move forward, both for the Army and the Warrant Officer cohort. I think it's great. My wife and family are going to move to Fort Leavenworth with me next spring. And I'm just happy to be able to continue to serve. There's a lot of great efforts going on in terms of Army modernization, relooking at force structure, how the Army fights. And as part of the CAC team, I get to be a part of all that. So we're really looking forward to it.
I couldn't help but pick up on the that last little bit there, that the family moves with you next spring. And that leads into this next question. What's been the most challenging part of the transition to the Combined Arms Center? Because it sounds like you're dual hatting.
I am, in fact, dual hatting. I would tell you that the team at the Combined Arms Center, Lieutenant General Martin and everybody there have been just absolutely excellent. About 4.5 weeks ago, I went to Fort Leavenworth and did a change of responsibility with CW5 Steve Kilgore. We spent about a week together doing transition, and we had been working some transition prior to that. So I feel like right now it's certainly been a pretty smooth transition. I spend on average about 1 week a month out at Fort Leavenworth. And so, it's really a different scope than I'm used to working at. So looking at all of the branches and all the warfighting functions from a little bit different lens. So it's been interesting. Certainly within this job, I've had a lot more interaction with the Chief of the Staff of the Army, Senior Warrant Officer Advisor, Ms. Dixon Carter, a lot more interaction with the Army Talent Management Task Force in the form of CW5 Rick Knowlton, and then a lot of good interaction across the different G staffs of the Army with their senior warrant officers. So yeah, it's been a great experience so far and a good transition.
Yeah, that definitely sounds pretty incredible, and I'm certain that your eyes are being opened up to really a whole new level. But you've worked in some pretty significant positions and as an analyst at some pretty high vis areas. Having been the Intel Core command chief for so long, how do you think this position's going to really differ from the focus of just the and probably I would say the intimacy of a single branch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it kind of leads us back to a little bit what I was talking about a few minutes ago. I think it's really just kind of in scope, because the things that we're looking at right now as the CAC CCWO are Warrant Officer PME, modernization and revitalization. So, and I've been doing that from a branch standpoint, but now to be doing it from a CAC standpoint and interacting with where you work down at the Warrant Officer Career College and places like Army University and our partners at CIMT, it's just a little bit different flavor and a little bit different look.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to coming up to Army U in July. I was selected for in-person presentation at the Army University Learning Symposium. I don't suppose you're going to be there during that period, will you?
I hadn't heard about it to this point, but it sounds like something I should be at. So I am going to dig into that once we get done with the podcast.
Um, it's a wonderful team over there, and they've been working really hard to get a lot of just the efforts of so many wonderful professionals across the Army University umbrella of organizations and all the COEs. So it should be pretty exciting. I was flabbergasted that my submission was pulled up for in person. So you'd made mention that you taking a look at the Warrant Officer Education experience, but aside from that, where do you see some of your best opportunities to engage with large Army challenges while serving at the Combined Arms Center?
Well, I think part of that just comes from, being an advisor to the command team there, and making sure that as we look at different aspects of modernization, that, going back to our last podcast, kind of looking at Army problems through a warrant officer lens and kind of offering maybe a little bit different look based on experiences we have as warrant officers, to influence things like, how the Army fights in 2030, and to influence some of the other restructuring and modernization efforts that are ongoing. So a lot of times I talk about just being present. As a warrant officer, if you want a seat at the table, you have to be present. And I think my presence in some of those discussions could help.
I definitely agree with you about that, and I think the Combined Arms Center is going to be very lucky to have you. The advancement of warrant officer education. There's a lot going on with that right now. As you recall, you were able to visit the Warrant Officer Career College. I believe that was a quick stop in April, and we had a chance to meet face to face. And as you know, we're working diligently to try to enhance the experience set there, both for the PME student and more importantly for the warrant officer candidate. What are some of your thoughts now that you're going from branch to Combined Arms Center regarding the advancement of warrant officer education experiences, especially from that seat, and how do you think maybe that can benefit the Army at large going into multi-domain operations?
Sure. A couple different thoughts on that. And I'd be remiss, and the first thing I'd like to do is really, tip my hat to Colonel Nelson and to CW5 Julian Evans, who are working hard and rowing very hard to take a look at the Warrant Officer Candidate School and then Warrant Officer PME writ large. I know that there's ongoing efforts. There was some discussions between them and TRADOC earlier in the week. Those are ongoing. There's a back brief to Lieutenant General Gervais, who's the TRADOC deputy commander. And so, those efforts are ongoing. From a CAC perspective, I would tell you that when it comes to Warrant Officer PME and education continuum reform, we're moving out with that. The orders out on the street, the directive tells us that we need to go through the modernization process by FY26. So we're going to go to a continuum that looks like Warrant Officer Basic course, Warrant Officer Intermediate course, Warrant Officer Advanced course, Warrant Officer Senior course, and then for W5s, a Warrant Officer Master course. And we're still kind of working on what that master course might look like. But what this provides is some level of PME for each grade. The idea here is to get a little bit more technical, get the right training for the right person at the right time within the scope of a career, and get them out into the force at the point of need. Most proponents are continuing to work on this, really still in the analysis phase. But we've got some pilots that are going to be moving out as early as FY23 into 24 and 25, and then fully operational capable in FY26. I see it as we work through how to get the resourcing for some of these courses as a CAC CCWO. I'm going to take some of the lead on that piece, working with our other partners at the Combined Arms Center, and certainly working with the proponents as they identify what they need.
I think we couldn't ask for a better teammate and leader up there that's just willing to spearhead some of those requirements. And, what it really means to all the listeners is, hey, Warrant Officer Education's cool again. And, it's time to get studious, everyone. I'm sure after meeting me, you can tell I'm dedicated to being an educator. I know that there's so many of us that are, and we all look forward to taking on the challenge of modernization and what that looks like. And I know that there are a lot of well-informed senior leaders and servant leaders in good positions to help groom what that final solution set looks like in the near future. So going back to the dramatic sort of sense of changing from one position to another, it's never easy moving into a new position, but and on top of that, growing in responsibility is never easy. And I am sure that serving as the Command Chief Warrant Officer at the CAC, as you already made mention, there's a lot of new teammates that you get to integrate with, to include soon to be, I don't know if he's pinned his third star, Lieutenant General Beagle. I know he's still over at 10th Mountain Division, but I know he's inbound. But you also made mention of getting time with Chief of Staff and of course the Senior Warrant Officer Advisor, CW5 Dixon Carter, all fantastic folks. But you're probably not the only one entering into a position like this or a situation like this for the first time. Do you have any words of advice or sage wisdom for warrant officers that might be experiencing the same thing for the first time? Specifically, how do you integrate into such high levels of command structure?
That's a great question. Major General Beagle has been identified to come out and be the new commander of the Combined Arms Center. Had a good email dialogue with him about 2 weeks ago. Really looking forward to working with him, looking forward to being on that team. So I think that'll be great. For the integration piece, again, I think this is one of these situations where there's no magic formula. I think for warrant officers aspiring to be in one of our senior more positions, I think you be yourself. I think you add value and you add context wherever you're at. I think maybe most importantly for me, something that I've learned over the course of a career is, unless it's illegal, unethical, or immoral, it's best to make your goals and objectives nested with your boss's goals and objectives. I've seen over the course of a career, both officers, warrant officers, and enlisted folks get to a new position and they start rowing in a different direction than the leadership. And then it could come back to kind of reflect negatively. And so again, unless it meets those other criteria, it just need to be nested with the boss's goals and objectives and moving out and providing value.
Well said, sir. And, that, and also a phenomenal transition. Thank you for that. Because the last question I have for you, and really, I hope the listeners take this one to heart, is what advice or what request would you make to the field regarding how warrant officers can best position their efforts to aid your work and the daily mission of the Combined Arms Center?
That's a great question. So the guidance I get from the Army senior leaders is they want their warrant officers a mile deep and an inch wide technically. And so I would ask the warrants across the force to continue to get technical in their jobs. And you can get technical a number of different ways, but get technical. And then for our field grade and senior field grade warrant officers, just understand where the Army's going right now. Understand what the Army priorities are. Understand that we're in a time of change. We're at an inflection point in our Army. We're going from counterinsurgency to large-scale combat operations. So I'd ask them to recognize change is necessary. I would ask our warrant officers to be flexible. I would ask them to move out in support of Army modernization. And then finally, and probably most importantly, I would ask them to be an agent of positive change within the organizations that they're currently in.
Well said, sir. And, as an educator and a former member of the Directorate of Training and Doctrine at one of the fine centers of excellence in our United States Army, I think what that really was is not just a plug for more technical education, but as we evolve, as we modernize and change, that also involves warrants staying up to date with revised doctrine. And I know as a self-professed nerd, I'm excited for the upcoming FM30. I know that there are draft copies of the new document circulating across the back halls of various institutions, but I can't wait for the street legal version because within there lies, really all the aspects of what you're asking folks to stay ready and aware of. And, I think I can speak for the entire group when I say we're all very eager and look forward to working with you. So is there anything else you would like to tell the audience?
No, I would just like to kind of reinforce that, my door is always open. Anybody, respective of, being inside a trade oc or on the operational force. If you have questions, that's part of what I do. And I'm happy to have these discussions. And so I look forward to that. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you personally. I've had a great time on these last two podcasts and look forward to down the road, maybe doing another one. So I think these are great venues, great medium, and look forward to it. Certainly appreciate, your congratulations to me on taking the new job. And just look forward to continuing to serve.
Well, sir, we appreciate you. And thank you for, of course, opening the door for another opportunity to reach out to the force. It has been so great to hear from a senior warrant officer that's willing to talk about doctrine and modernization and share mentorship, especially with those that they seek to so willingly serve. So thank you so much for your time and sharing how our senior warrant officers' leadership can ultimately contribute to meeting the requirements for both the current and future fight. For updates on Cohort W and the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Simply search for @WOHF1918 or the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation. Finally, to learn more about how you can support programs like this, please visit warrantofficerhistory.org.